And the interesting thing was nobody called him speaker. Nobody. Everybody, the cops, the wait staff in the hotel, all called him Paul. When we walked outside, people were coming, "Hey, Paul, how you doing?" It was amazing to see. It was that unpretentious.
Yeah. So, what's going on at the sheriff's department these days?
There's a lot that's going on. To go through the agenda really quickly, we started de-escalation training as part of deputy refresher. Right now it's a 2-hour block, but we're going to expand that. I'm in the process of redoing our use of force policy. The use of force policy is going to, the very first line is that everything we do centers around the sanctity of human life. And then it goes from there. In Daytona, Carla Kwan started last week with me. She's already laying the foundation for a Police Explorer and a PAL program there. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we'll be doing ComStat in Daytona, a public ComStat meeting using their city hall. The Real-Time Crime Center, we are in the process of looking for a vendor. We don't know if we're going to stay with the same company we had in Daytona Beach or go to another company that Tampa uses called NC4, and eventually we want to roll that out countywide. So once we get the technology company in, that's going to be out. And the purpose of the Real-Time Crime Center is twofold. It's number one is to keep the officers safe. The more information that you can get in the hands of the officers, the better decisions that they can make. And the second thing is it keeps the community safe, because we can blast that information out as far as crime trends, crime patterns, and it increases the odds of apprehension. And give you an example of how it worked in Daytona Beach. Thank God criminals aren't smart for the most part. There was a bank robbery at the Wells Fargo, at Clyde, and ISB. And everybody responds, and we have a really good witness who says, hey, it's a white 4-door Saturn, and it's a partial tag of ABC. Well, as we're being dispatched to the bank, the analysts are pulling up every camera, every tag reader that we have to see if a white Saturn hit. They are also searching the database with every combination of ABC, what the other digits can be. And while that's going on, they're pumping out the still videos of the bank robber and running him through facial recognition. So in a matter of 15 minutes, we know what car it was because the guy went through the intersection 5 times before he robbed the bank. Facial recognition matches up to the owner of the car. So all that is out there, and within 15 minutes, you're able to make an arrest. So that's what the Real-Time Crime Center is going to do for the entire county. And it's just a matter of getting some resources from the other cities to do that. When the last 3 police shootings come in, when FDLE is done with them, PERF is going to come in here. PERF is the Police Executive Research Forum. They are going to look at the last 3 years' worth of police shootings. And the idea is not to lay blame at the officers, because the officers are doing what they were trained to do and what the culture of the organization is. They're going to look at that. They're going to look at the policies and procedures and the way we train, and they're going to devise a plan for me to help me change the culture, is what it's going to come down to. This isn't radical. It was done in Palm Beach County. They were averaging double-digit police shootings the last several years. PERF came in and studied every shooting, and along with the sheriff, they came up with a game plan. In the last 2 years, they've had 2 police shootings, and both of those shootings, the bad guy had a gun and was firing at the cops. So that's where we're headed there. Command staff-wise, there's going to be a huge shakeup coming, probably within the next 30 days. It won't be the first one. It won't be the last. We're trying to put round pegs in the round holes, and I'm trying to find folks that subscribe to my style of offense. How to run the offense is what we're looking to do. We're going to establish a police foundation. Edith Shelley is volunteered to be president. And again, the goal of that is technology and training. I want to be able. One of the things I want to fight is groupthink. We train together constantly. We answer radio calls together, and we think that that's the only way to think. But when you send these guys and girls out to like Boston University or John F. Kennedy School of Government, and they're sitting in a room with other police leaders and see that there's more than one way of doing things, they bring those ideas back, and we can implement them into the organization.
So I had heard, I don't know where I heard this, but that your first night there, I guess it was New Year's Eve, and that one of your first directives was for the command staff get out there with the troops, so to speak, which I think was unusual for the sheriff's department. So how'd that go over?
They didn't say anything to me. There was more concern that we had a staff meeting the next morning at 10 a.m. That kind of had everybody a little rankled, because one of them came up to me and said, "You do know New Year's is a holiday, a county holiday." And I said, "Well, in my mind, Christmas and Thanksgiving are really the only two holidays. New Year's, we need to be working. Deputies are on the street working. We need to be out, and we need to start on the first day. I'm going to lay out my agenda to you." Now, I did supply them with a breakfast that cost me $300 and some out of my pocket. It would have been cheaper to take them to the chart house than it would have brought a caterer in. So they were well fed. They could go back home. They were definitely well fed. So the whole thing with my command staff in Daytona Beach, even in Philadelphia, the commanders were out on patrol. You know, somewhere along the line, you better squeeze into your day or your week or your weekend a point in time when you're out there backing up your officers, answering radio calls. Let the public see that you care, that it's your district, that you care, and you're out there doing those things. And I think it goes over really well. Even though I don't know the whole county, I try to always make sure that I know something when somebody makes a car stop or there's a domestic disturbance, that if I'm there, I'm driving in to back them up. And the other night I was going home from work and we were in Deland, and I don't know what's going on with the radio yet. And when two of my cars go by, lights and sirens, like, I don't know where the hell they're going. I don't know what's going on. We'll just throw my lights and sirens and follow them in. So they went through a domestic disturbance, and one of the new kids, first of all, he almost crapped his pants when he saw me get out of the car. But after we were done, he says, "You know, it must be nice to be the sheriff. You get all brand new equipment. Look at this ratty flashlight I have." So I said, "Well, you know what? Give me the ratty flashlight, because you work nights. You take my flashlight." And the kid's like, but my sergeant, my sergeant will get mad at me for that." I said, "First of all, I'm the sheriff. I don't care what your sergeant says. I don't need a brand new $150 flashlight. I'm fine with your flashlight that hardly works. Take this thing, and we'll work on getting new flashlights for all you guys."
Yeah, your comment about not knowing the whole county, I laughed when I read you had somebody driving with you on your first day and going through Daytona, and he's been doing it for 3 years. And
he had
well, our carriers, I was meeting with our circulation folks, and that's the most crazy laid out town. It is the hardest place to deliver
It's like
newspapers.
somebody threw spaghetti against a wall.
Yeah,
That's what they all say.
And it twists and turns, and you can't make sense of it. And so I was glad to see someone who'd been there 3 years was getting lost, because our carrier.
I will tell you, one of the funny things that night, and thank God they didn't report it, is I've never, ever, ever sat in the passenger seat of a police car. Never. Not since I was a rookie and didn't have to wear seatbelts. So when I'm out driving with this kid, I got the computer on my lap, and we got this guy dumping gasoline all over. They want to set the street on fire or whatever, and I can't get out of the seatbelt. When they pull up, he goes to run. The kid riding me runs. The backup guy runs. I can't get out of the seatbelt. I'm pulling stuff, and this is not coming. It's going to wiggle out and slide underneath of it. Of course, I go back to the car, and Andrew Grant says to me, "Excuse me, but it's on the left-hand side, the little button, and you just push it. Look how it works." Dumb son of a gun. So,
You know, I think it was like the first week you were there, maybe it was about a week after you became sheriff. There was a memo that went out that was unusual, at least in coming from the sheriff's department. And basically it was a we get it memo to citizens. And it's sort of like, we get it that, you know, there's crime in your neighborhood, and this makes you unhappy about your neighborhood, and you know, may think, you know, I can't wait to get out of here, or those sorts of things. And it was sort of a call to, instead of that, here's what we'd like, help us. What was the origin of that, and was that directed toward Daytona? Because it had a kind of a city feeling. And
it's directed to the whole county, but Daytona in particular. I was at the commission meeting, their last commission meeting, and there were several people up there that were complaining about different things. And one of my, as I was talking to the one gentleman, I said, "Well, have you ever called us?" "Well, no, I've never, ever called the police." "Have you ever emailed us? Have you ever done any of that stuff?" He said, "Well, no. I really don't think you guys would listen to me." And I said, "Well, that's what's changing. And when we start holding the public ComStat meetings, because the crime stats are actually pretty good in Daytona. They're actually excellent, as a matter of fact. I mean, I was just going through them over the weekend and comparing the last several years together. They do a nice job out there. We're bad at marketing that. We're bad at soliciting input. And that's one of what the residents say, is they don't feel that they have a say in what goes on. They're happy for the most part. The deputies come, they're very professional. They're happy with what we're doing with the Boys and Girls Club, but they want some more engagement is what they want. So I think once I get these first month or two behind me and start getting out there on my bike with the command staff and we get the bike patrol up and running, I think they'll see a huge difference there. From just in the culture and the energy level from the officers. They're a great group of officers that are assigned there. But one of the things they get rotated out. It's like you go there, you cut your teeth, and then you go somewhere else. And that's I want to change that. If you want to get ahead in the organization, as long as I'm the sheriff, you're going to do time there, and they're going to be a vital cog in what we're doing out there. It's not going to be, hey, I'm going to do 2 years, and then you're going to rotate me to another assignment, or I go to a special assignment. I want people in there because they have a passion for policing inside of the city. It's our largest city. I mean, the contract's over $10 million. There's over 88 officers assigned there. First. Second on that list is Pearson. I have a meeting later on this week with the leader of the Farm Workers Bureau, because obviously there's a lot of undocumented workers up there, and obviously there are a whole host of issues that will go unreported because they're afraid they're going to be deported if they have any contact with us at all. And I want to go up there and ensure them that that's not what we're here to do. You know, if you're a woman and you're a victim of domestic violence, you have to call us. If your children are being, battered, you have to call us. If there's a drug problem up there, we have to know about it.
Are these going to be public meetings?
They'll be public. The ComStat meetings will be public. The meeting with the farm workers are coming into my office.
Comments you said was there's some technology and you're trying to decide which way to go, which kind of triggered in my head, okay, so when you make a decision, I want to go this way, it might be a little harder than what you're used to say, I want to purchase this. You've got to work a little different. And obviously we've written a little bit about maybe some of your frustrations on having a county manager who then has to go in front of a council, and it doesn't move, I think, as quick as you want to move. Can you kind of address that?
Yeah, it moves at a dinosaur's pace. Let me say this to you. In this case, we already have the money appropriated. They appropriated $600,000 for the technology for the crime center. So it's just a matter of, are we going to use the same technology that we have in Daytona, which would make it really easy, and we'd save a little bit of money doing that. But from the user end, the officers say, and I don't use it every day, the officers have to use it every day, say the system can be cumbersome. So that's what we're looking at another system for. But to get to your point, all the juvenile programs that I wanted to put in place, which was kind of frustrating since we've done them, they've been vetted, we get federal monies, we get audited by the federal government in Daytona for those programs, to have to go and sit before the county manager, the county attorney, and a budget person, and then sit there and do a 2-hour presentation over something that we've done was kind of frustrating. Those 2 hours could have been spent something else. And then, this isn't a knock on the county attorney, but the county attorney has a different spin on juvenile justice. So I don't think that the county attorney should be dictating what the sheriff wants to do in terms of juvenile justice, especially the programs that have been put in place, have been vetted, and we see we're getting a return on our investment for the community. That was frustrating to see that end of it. Since then, I have met nonstop with the county manager. I mean, he held a really good budget meeting for me the other day. That was over 2 hours long, where he laid out everything for me to see everything. There's a $19 million radio upgrade coming in. There's I think it's about a $30 million new evidence facility that's coming in. So that was interesting. I wish that was something that I could have done right after I was first elected. But that's like anything else. You're getting into a new place. They're trying to exert their power. You're trying to throw pat at a great thing, throw elbows, just like playing basketball. You're a post player, and all of a sudden you go play a team where you don't want the ball coming inside, and you got to do what you have to do to establish your territory. So we'll make it work at the end of the day.
Is that sort of your take of the sort of? It's been interesting, not just between the sheriff and the county manager and the county attorney and the county council, but between the county council and the county manager. Is that your sense that people are just kind of figuring out their space? And
yeah, I think that's what it is. You come in, I come in there, and Kelly's coming in, Heather's coming in, Billy Wheeler's coming in. Everybody has all these ideas and all these passions of what they want to do. And of course, there are the constraints of doing that. There is a way to do business. There is a charter. There are certain things, rules and regulations you have to follow. But until you figure that out, you're jockeying for that position.
You had mentioned something to me Saturday about something you and Jim Deland are doing. Maybe you could walk us through what that is and how that came about like a week after it appeared like you guys were having a hard time just talking to each other.
We were supposed to film a commercial to promote the half marathon. So when we're out there on Indiana, outside of the courthouse, shooting the commercial, county manager says to me, I fell putting up Christmas decorations. I fell off the roof and I really screwed up my knee, and I haven't been able to train to compete in the half marathon. I said, well, that's kind of funny because I need a new knee, and the most I could get out of it, if I could get 7 miles out, it's a good day. So he says, well, why don't we split it? Cameras are rolling. What am I going to say? Let's split it. So that's what we're going to do. We haven't decided who's going to run the first half and who's going to run the second half yet. But at the end of the day, Jim Deland is a really smart guy, and I like Jim. I mean, he came to Philadelphia with me, and he ran the Broad Street Run, which is the largest 10-miler, second largest field for a 10-miler in the country several years back. But when you're used to doing things a certain way and somebody else is used to doing things another way, it's like I said, we're two type A personalities. We're going to bump heads because there are directions and things that I want to do and I want to charge straight ahead. I can't wait a month or 2 months. We have to do these things right away. So we're going to make it work.
Do you feel like he's more responsive to moving more quickly on some things?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, if I was going to him and say that, I want $20 million to do this project, and this is what I want to do. I mean, obviously, there are things that have to be vetted, and they have to work at the details. But when I'm transferring one successful program into another organization, I think that's something that should be boom right through. It's like what Dustin was covering with Randy Nelson, the professor from BCU, to do this race and policing thing. I mean, obviously that moved through very quickly because the county manager was getting heat from black elected officials that the arrest of the postman could have been racially motivated. If it was a blonde-headed white lady, she might not have got locked up. There's some merit to that. So when I said this is what I'm going to do with the sheriff's office, like, hey, whatever you need, tell me how much you need, get me an estimate, we'll write the check. It's not a big deal. That's not something that has to go before the council. We'll get it done right away.
Right.
So,
what is Dan Hicker's issue with the? I guess is it like the juvenile, like the bracelets?
He has a unique spin on that. He has a spin that the bracelets are more of a social stigma goes with them. He also referred to a county lawsuit about, I don't know how many years ago, with detention of juveniles. And that's something that we're sorely lacking, that, we have a huge juvenile issue here. We do not have a juvenile receiving center in this county. We do not. So it basically has law enforcement, you're either going to lock them up or you're going to stick them in a diversionary program. Seminole County has a juvenile, it's called the JAX. It is probably the best in the state. It's the model for how to handle. So any juvenile you come in contact with goes into this center, and that at that point in time, that juvenile is assessed head to toe. Do they have an anger management issue? Do they have a substance abuse issue? Do they have a learning disability? What's going on in their family? And that's how they tailor how the juvenile gets the treatment that they need. Our ankle monitor does that with Judge Hood, with Judge LaRue, with Judge Watson. We were very lucky in that when the ankle monitor went on, it basically, in most cases, the ankle monitor is a last step before secure facility. Now, you cut it off, you're going to secure facility. But when that young man or young lady stands before the judge, there is a head-to-toe assessment done of them. We know how much weed they're smoking. We know that they've been truant for the last couple of years. We know that they're reading at a kindergarten level and they're 14 years old. We know that it's a single household. The mom's been arrested for prostitution 6 times. And the kid's bouncing all over the place. And we try to tailor-make the probation to fit that kid. Now, it's a federal grant, and I think we're running around somewhere between 58 and 62% of the time. That kid, when he comes off that ankle monitor, does not reoffend within that first year, which is a home run for us. So there's one year that kid has towed the line. We have other parents that their kid is just starting delinquent behavior, and they call us and say, how do I get my son or daughter on that monitor? Because I don't know where they're at. They're incorrigible. I need some help here. So For me, my biggest thing in all the years I've been a cop, and I think if you go back and look at somebody who's 25 years old and is sentenced to a significant stretch in state prison or federal prison, when you look back to when they were 13 or 14, you'll find they were habitually truant, they were smoking weed, and they couldn't read, or they were an abysmal level of reading. Every one of them. I guess the trick is, how do you get that? Not good in science, right here. Not good in math, right here. But I could read. That's why we changed our PAL program around from not so much sports as it is. It's not basketball, baseball, football, and boxing. It's more about reading and life skills. So when we run our PAL summer program, we get about 60 kids come into that. We do their schoolwork, their math and reading for what they know they're going to get the first 6 months when they go back to school. And then they'll do basic life skills, like your mom gives you a $20 bill and sends you to the movies, and it's $7.50 to get in, and you buy a box. What's the change that comes back? So there are little things like that to try to get in and try to break the cycle. Plus, it makes us, I think it softens our image with the school resource officer program, which is something that we're looking to expand, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to meet with the Speaker of the House, because the Republicans aren't necessarily good at funding cops programs like that. If history is anything, when Clinton was when I was in Philly, we benefited immensely from the cops program, and that was when they were in the footbeats. So we got hundreds upon hundreds of cops, and their sole focus in life was they had to go in high crime areas on foot or on a bike, and there was strict monitoring of what their activities were. And then when Bush 2 came in, they were all whacked, and we were able to get tanks and machine guns and all those other things. And then when Obama came in, we had 3 cops grants since I've been here. 2 were to fight violent crime, and 1 was for school resource officers. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here, and that's what we wanted to get into. Ryan was there needs to be funds for local policing, for municipal and county policing that has a huge community component. And he talked about that. He talked about reentry for convicted felons, which was surprising coming from a Republican. He talked about rolling back mandatory sentencing laws. He talked about community policing and community engagement. He was a big proponent of drug court. He was a big proponent for diversion for misdemeanor offenses for first or second time offenders, which was kind of interesting. And he has an ad hoc committee that they're trying to draft a document for policing in this current climate that we have. So we talked about things. There's.
Did you feel he was receptive?
Very, very. Which is kind of interesting. Yeah, coming in as a sheriff, it's kind of not. Everybody said you can't be a police chief and be a sheriff. You have to scrap that mentality. It's the same thing. The difference is I think you have an influence on which way the policies go as the sheriff, or as the chief, you may not have that same thing of being elected. You can have more say on it.
Along that line, you mentioned earlier about getting deputies embedded into Daytona, not just for a rotation, but they want to be there. You want deputies who want to do city-type policing. So along the lines of people who say you can't be a sheriff and a chief, is generally the people who join sheriff's offices as deputies, do they look for a different kind of policing than if they had joined a city police staff? In other words, are you trying to turn these deputies into something that maybe they didn't sign up for? Or do you find that there's a sufficient number of deputies under you that do want to do that and maybe didn't have the opportunity
There's a great question. There's a significant amount of deputies who want to be, where do you want us to go? We want to be a bigger help in our community. There is a segment of them who believe that they are the Marines, and we come out to solve a problem. We come out to kick ass and take names, and then we get back in the car. All that stuff you do in Daytona Beach isn't going to fly here. I'm already encountering that resistance from the old guard who's kind of like, that de-escalation shit ain't going to work and get somebody killed. Well, we're not asking you, I'm not trying to put you in a situation where you're going to be hurt. My question to you is, if your son was mentally ill and on a crack binge and swinging a machete around saying, I want the cops to kill me, and he was inside the living room and you called us, and 22 seconds after we arrived, we shoot and kill him, you called us for help. You didn't call us to kill your son. And we'll just write a check when that happens. That's an attitude that's prevalent in law enforcement, and there's a pocket of that. But I think overwhelmingly the deputies are like, tell us what you want, and we'll go do it. That's what we want to emulate. We want to tap into that. The school resource officers, we just had a meeting with them on Friday to talk about how much more we think they can be doing, and every single one of them was receptive, and some of them have even sent me emails and, hey, I've always wanted to do this program, but I was stopped. Do I have permission to go do it? So we have Carl Kwan's going to tackle that.
And going back, you just discussed the use of force, the perf review you talked about. Is that in response to something particular that you saw, you're troubled by? Or is this something general that you would have done anyway?
I think in today's climate, it's something that I have to do. I have to review those shootings because, I'll give you an example. This post-man's arrest really bothers me. It bothers me that you have a federal employee of over 20 years, okay? Never been in trouble with the law. He follows the policy of the post office. It's a cell phone, for Christ's sake. Puts in his bag, and he's supposed to complete his rounds, and then he's supposed to drop off the phone at headquarters. We decide, in our infinite wisdom, that under a statute of lost property or something, that the postman should have sold those police cars and returned it to the closest police officer. My understanding is the overwhelming majority of the command staff, when it happened, we're like, oh my God, we got to apologize and fix this. The sheriff and one person said, no, he violated the state statute, lock him up. He goes to jail. And you got to say to yourself, well, if no internal investigation was done, it's a $40,000 settlement, $80,000 actually, and there's nothing is done because the person at the top of the organization said it was fine. Well, are there other use of forces that we said were fine that now become part of the culture? So that's the purpose of the review. I mean, when I got here in Daytona Beach, we shot the shit out of cars. My first month here, we shot at 4 cars. One as the guy was actually pumping gas, they shot at a car, and they're going to blow the whole place up. So that prompted immediate changes to our use of force policy just on those several incidents, and that's what we're looking to do. It's not a knock on anybody. I just think in today's climate, that writing check stuff, you got to look and see what we're doing. I mean, we're humans, and I think it's the Washington Post did a study last year. There was almost 1,000 police shootings last year they looked at, and approximately 70% of them, the bad guy had a gun that he used or indicated he was about to use. You take them off the table. But there's another 300 or 400 shootings where the guy had a pool cue, a knife, a bat, a brick, or nothing at all. They're the ones that we think, and that's the purpose of what the Post's trying to do. They're the ones we think that we can change through proper training, proper tactics. You know, we did it in Daytona, and I think it would go over. We had a woman who was all cracked up. This was a couple years back. She's up at the beachside hotel on A1A. She gets in a fight with her boyfriend. She fires a couple shots at him, and she chases him down A1A and shoots at him. She goes back in the hotel room. When we show up, she opens fire on us. We drop back. They seal everything down. We lock everything down. And the order I gave the SWAT team was, unless she comes out running at your position, she's not to die. You are not to shoot her. I'm not asking anybody to stick their neck out and get their head blown off. Just keep the cover and let her do what she's got to do. So, and that's a mindset. That's a different mindset. I mean, fortunately for me, I've been involved in 2 police shootings. In both of my shootings, the one was over in a matter of 3 seconds. You know, I'm chasing the bad guy. It's a carjacking. He gets in between 2 parked cars. I don't see him when we come out of the alleyway. As I'm looking for him, I'm looking on the porches. He pops up, and his gun goes click, and my gun goes bang. And the second one, it was over 80 shots were fired between me and 3 bad guys, high-speed chase like a movie thing. I was so nervous when I was done, I couldn't open up my gun and reload it after I had fired 6. So I know what it's like. So when I'm saying, when I'm talking about de-escalation, I'm not talking as somebody who sat behind his desk his whole career. I'm talking about somebody who's been out there on the street and understands that. It's like, why do we leave a dead body in a poorer neighborhood lay on the street for hours and hours and hours? Why? Pick it up, scoop him up, get him out of there. Because if his buddies would have picked him up and drove him to the hospital, you'd still conduct the investigation the same way. But the reason is because the medical examiner takes forever to get out there, and the medical examiner has jurisdiction. Well, chiefs and sheriffs should turn around and say, I ain't waiting 3 hours or 5. It's not going to happen. We're going to treat the body with respect and get the body out of there. They can do the investigation does not change a little bit by letting that body lay there. It doesn't change a little bit. So,
Sheriff, what's the status of body cams, I think you may know we've been critical of the sheriff's department before on being slow, where Daytona Beach was actually quick about adopting that kind of technology. So where does it stand today, and is it where you want it?
That is a perfect example of when you talk about how the county inserts itself into something, and they study it and study it and study it. It was paralysis through analysis. Because I remember talking to the sheriff before, the big thing was using evidence.com or building your own place to store the evidence. And that was studied 88 ways from Sunday, and as they're studying it, every year we're buying 50 more.
Right or wrong, my feeling, I don't know, I'm not gonna say our feeling, but my feeling was a lot of that studying was so it would be delayed because there wasn't a great amount of enthusiasm to do that. So where does it stand, and where is it gonna stand?
Well, right now we're changing the policy. One of the interesting things in the policy was you're allowed to turn off your camera for police tactics. And the only reason I know this is we had 2 dog bites, and I'm like, I know the canine guys have body camera video. Why is there no body camera video? Well, they're allowed to turn it off for police tactics. So I'm like, okay, that's got to change. So we are.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know. The purpose of the camera is, in our policy, is pretty clear. You turn it on when the incident's over. You gotta turn it off. I fired 2 guys because they police tactic it and turned it off. And when they turned it back on, the woman's got no teeth in her mouth and she's screaming, "Why did you just kick me in the face?" I don't get it. For some reason, they allowed the union to have input on how they were drafting the policy, as opposed to saying, "Here's the policy. If you don't like it, fight me."
For police tactics, sounds like we're gonna turn it off if we're about to engage in something that we perhaps don't want there to be a record of.
And clearly on the canine, it goes off before the dog gets turned loose to bite the guy. That's
Right.
why it got turned off. They don't want to see the bite on video.
Yeah.
So that should have that order was supposed to come out. We changed the policy, it was supposed to come out Friday. I wasn't in there Friday to see if it went out yet. I didn't see it in my inbox yet. But there are some of the changes to the policy that we have to make. And the administration just has to step back and say, look, Daytona Beach was the first police department state of Florida to go with body cameras. Our policy's been vetted by the ACLU, by major police associations. We're going to implement that. And if the union wants to fight it, fight me. Because at the end of the day, it's about transparency and doing the right thing, not about police tactics.
So do all officers have?
No.
I didn't think so.
No. There's 460 sworn deputies, and I think there's about roughly 200 are on the street. So all 200 deputies do not have body cameras. There are some in the courthouses, which I don't understand, but.
And is that a lack of funding or?
No, the funding's there.
So.
The funding there. It's a lack of commitment from the leadership of the organization to say, this is the direction we're going to go. Let's go.
So what's going to happen over the next period? There's new leadership.
You may see another battle like we had already, because if the county manager doesn't believe it, it's not getting done. It'll drag to it. And I believe, like you guys believe, I believe that there was an intentional study, there was an intentional delay, and the objective behind it was, this is a passing fad. We're going to stand back. And in the meantime, you're shooting unarmed citizens, you're shooting mentally ill people, and none of that's caught on video. When all that could have told what the real story was.
At the risk of flipping your switch,
Go ahead.
I'll tell you what I was told. The sheriff's department wanted to do it the right way because the city did it the wrong way.
Yeah, I know. Johnson told me that. He said, you guys didn't do it the right way. I don't see how it hasn't been beneficial to us. I mean, I've disciplined guys. We've changed training because of it. We've had transparency in the community with police shootings. I've had NAACP come in and complain about something and put the video right up there when we were 1,001% wrong. So much for that. I don't worry about that. I mean, we're in charge now. At least for the next 4 years, we're going to try to do things the right way. And I'll tell you this, nobody knows this yet. I just paid my ticket. I got one of my deputies pulled me over. He didn't actually pull me over. He lit me up for speeding on Friday. I was leaving the comm center, and I was headed to Daytona Beach to a swearing in. And I was on LPJ Boulevard, and in uniform, in a marked car, on duty, and he pulled me over for doing 73 in a 55. I'm $281 later today in my checking account because of it. I ordered him to write a ticket, to send a message that this is the way we're going to do business. I mean, I was wrong, I was in uniform, and I didn't think about it the whole day. I didn't think about it. And then somebody texted me and said, hey, is it true that you got pulled? I said, yeah. And I thought more and more and more. I said, I'm not a cop, and I need a professional courtesy. I'm the sheriff, for Christ's sake. And I was speeding. My guy pulled me over, regardless of whether I was working or not. You need to write the ticket. So I was like, I'm not into my career. I said, just write the ticket. Write the ticket, give me the ticket, and I'll pay the ticket. So like I said, I'm $281 later in my checking account. And hopefully it sends a message, because I can't have, we paid $200,000 out in a lawsuit for a crash. We have another investigation going on in Edgewater where an officer way over the speed limit T-bones an elderly couple and causes major damage to those folks. You can't have the sheriff driving 23 miles an hour over the speed limit. Even though we all speed, everybody speeds at one point in time. As the leader of the organization, I screwed up, and I have to send a message to the deputies that I want to discipline myself. You can damn well be sure that I'm going to discipline you.
This is not as interesting as a speeding ticket for the sheriff, but it's kind of unrelated to this, but it's related to something else we're working on opioids in the community, and opioid mothers, and opioid babies, and just this sort of kind of below the radar epidemic that when the pill mills were here, we thought that was going away, but it seems to persist. I'm just interested in kind of your experience both in Daytona Beach and now as sheriff with that issue.
Personally, that affects my family. So I look at it not only from a law enforcement perspective, and I don't know the answer, Pat. I just know from a personal point of view, you feel helpless. As a father, I feel helpless. Yeah, I can do everything I can, but until that person hits the bottom and says, I got to change my life and I need you to stand by me, there's not a hell of a whole lot I can do for that person. But on the flip side of it, I think we have successfully one time made an arrest of a drug dealer for manslaughter. And the case involved a state attorney's son who died of an overdose. And we were able to backtrack and get enough evidence to lock up the dealer from that end. So, but it is a lot bigger problem than a lot of us think. I go through those police reports every day, and there was a car stop, and the guy clearly was impaired, and in the process of doing the sobriety test or whatever, they discover that there was a bottle of Xanax under the seat that had 500 of them in there. There were X number. He admitted to taking so much before he drove. So it didn't go away. I thought the same thing everybody else thought. When we shut the window on the pill mills, I thought we were in good shape, but it didn't. That gave to the rise of heroin, and it didn't really end the pills. It didn't end it.
Yeah. I had one other question I wanted to ask you before you got out of here. How much do you sleep?
Well, clearly I was sleeping on LPGA when they pulled me over for speeding. So, probably about 5 hours a night.
Is that when I sleep 5 hours a night, I feel sleep deprived, and I can do it a couple days in a row. Is that sort of your average?
Yeah, the average about that. But then there are some days that you close the door in your office and you take a 20-minute power nap and you feel fantastic after you do that. But I don't really feel tired. I mean, that's why you work out all the time, because when you get done, it gives you that boost of energy for hours and hours and hours. And then when you hit that lull, like I said, sometimes you just close the door and just put your feet up on the desk and just say, just turn the phone off for 20 minutes. I'll get back. Now, I was a bum yesterday. I can tell you that I took my time. I laid in bed till 9 o'clock. I didn't get on my bike until 10.
But then you rode 30 miles.
I rode 35 miles and worked out. But then I went into work for 5 hours. But then last night I got home at 5 o'clock, took a nap till 6. And then the storm. Then I was worried about the storms. We were monitoring that the whole night, or at least till 10 o'clock when they shut the EOC down. So
Yeah, I was wondering.
sleep's overrated, Pat.
So you're a 3-week veteran now? Of
22
the
days.
Department. What's been the biggest surprise for you? But
The biggest
don't come
surprise
in-
would be the resistance to change. There are some times that I'll say, hey, let's go do this. And the response will be, well, Sheriff Johnson will never do that. To which I always look at and say, it's Sheriff Chitwood, it's not Sheriff Johnson. So it's hard for the organization, for some people in the organization, to accept the fact that we're headed in a new direction. And that's why I'm taking my time before I make the transfers, because Ben has been there 16 years. This was his organization. It is going to take a little bit of time, but I can remember a new boss coming into the Philadelphia Police Department. A guy came in and said, "This is what we're going to do." You said, "Yes, sir," and out the door you went. There was no, well, previous one did it that way, because if you said that, you were getting run over. You'd be in the cell room processing drunks for the rest of your career. You just didn't do that. So.
Is that the sort of the notion of changing the command structure?
Yeah.
To just sort of get past that?
Yeah, everybody, every one of us are creatures of habit, and we become accustomed to what we're allowed to do. And if you were never asked to work weekends and holidays, you were never asked to be innovative and creative. And one of the things, the deputies' interviews, and it almost like they all got together and practiced it. And I did. I'm going to tell you, there's 460 of them. I bet you I came pretty damn close to interviewing every one of them. The top thing was pay and pay compression, followed by a disconnect with the administration. We think the administration has no clue of what goes on out here. They were 1 and 2. Fleet was 4, which was amazing. Everybody complains about Fleet, the way the cars were serviced and things like that. But they were 1 and 2 on every. They didn't switch. As soon as they would sit down, I'm going to tell you what you're going to tell me. You're going to complain about pay, and you're complaining about, yeah, I am.
When you say pay compression, what is that?
An example would be that there are sergeants that make between $90,000 and $100,000 a year. Lieutenants make around 60. Captains probably make around 75 to 80. So you can have a sergeant makes more money, and that sergeant will never, even if he or she is a really, really smart individual, they will never move up the ranks because it's a pay cut to them. I have a major who came in to see me and said, "Look, I know you're making changes. I don't want to go back to the rank of captain. I don't want to go back to the rank of sergeant. I'm getting divorced. I'm in a divorce. I need to go back to the rank of sergeant. Because I can go back to the rank of sergeant. I can make anywhere between $90,000 and $100,000 a year with all the overtime and the details. I'm coming up on my last 4 years of my career to account toward my pension. And that's what I want to do."
So, yeah, because we've examined the overtime policy. Well, I talked to you about that one time last year, and that was exactly it. That people who are hourly, some of them, when you look at who's making the most money at the sheriff's office, it's one of them I think was making $111,000 the year that we looked at it.
Preliminarily, we are spending $60,000 a month in overtime in courthouse security. Now that number may fluctuate a little, but the high number is 60,000. So I sent the major in charge and the captain in charge to go over to Lake County. Lake is one of 5 counties who have either totally or partially privatized courthouse security. So we're going to unroll. That's something that's coming out in the next couple of months too. We're going to probably partially privatize. I have to get the judges' buy-in, but I can't imagine if you guys started writing it, we're spending $60,000 a month in overtime just to fill vacancies of courthouse security. When I could pay a company out of that has to ensure they're there. I don't have to pay medical benefits. I don't have to pay pensions. I don't have to do anything. And they're a reputable company that people wouldn't say, "Why are we doing this?" That's one of the things that we're trying to fix, because that courthouse security I never experienced anything like it. I just toured the Deland courthouse. There are so many moving parts that go with that, with security of the courtroom, getting the prisoners in, the security for the judges, the bailiffs, all the staffing issues that go with it, the screening of people who are coming through the front door. It's a beast unto itself. And Deland is a relatively new courthouse, so they have all the bells and whistles. They have all the security cameras. They have all that. The annex, even the president judge said to me, that place is a disaster looking to happen, because it was not built for what we use it for. So there are things there that need to be done just for courthouse security purposes. But that is one of the places we hemorrhage. The other thing we do is we backfill because of vacancies. I mean, every time I turn around, we're hiring, and that was one of the complaints from the deputies, that sometimes I work 8, 9, and 10 straight days because I'm mandated And then when I get a day off, they tell me I'm on call. So which means I can't do anything. I have to respond within an hour. So you said, oh, I'm gonna hang around the house with the kids. That's all you can do. You can't go to the beach. You can't do anything. So there's a comprehensive study being done of what is going on with our manpower. Where is it? We're carrying 25 openings now, and the county doesn't seem to be in a hurry to fill it.
How many openings?
25. The county doesn't seem to be in a hurry to fill it because I'm wondering, and I wouldn't get this answer, is the belief from the county administrators that it's easier to pay the overtime than fill the vacancies. What's cheaper to do? We had a CFO here. His theory was by pay the overtime because I don't have to pay health and welfare and pension benefits on the back end. If you pay, we're going to pay one way or the other. It'll be cheaper in the long run. I don't necessarily agree with that. I hate to pay overtime to fill a vacancy. I hate it. Fight crime all day long, but to fill a vacancy, it just because then what happens is that's what the cops know how the game's played. Cops aren't stupid. Hey, you take off sick. I'm next up. You take off sick on Sunday, and I'll come in for overtime and fill your spot. So it leads for abuse, and it leads for and sometimes it leads to corruption when you run it like that. So
Yeah, when you look at the overtime that some of the not sergeants, but the sergeants especially in those positions, they really there's kind of this perception. Well, they make they're all making they're well paid, but some of them are making six-figure incomes, and then when you look at the amount of time that they're spending out there in a row, you have to wonder, is that healthy?
they're not effective.
Yeah.
They lose their effectiveness. But the other thing you have to look at with that overtime thing is, and amazingly they can't break this out because I asked them, what do we spend a month in overtime? And then break it out to me as far as what is filling a vacancy, what is detail pay, and what is for investigative purposes for homicide or an armed robbery or child or rape. What do we spend on that end? And they told me we can't do that. We don't have the capability to break that out because the detail pay, the county gets reimbursed for that. So if Walmart wants to hire a cop for 8 hours and the sergeant signs up, he gets 8 hours overtime, time and a half, but Walmart reimburses the county for that.
Right.
So they don't have that in Daytona. I could tell you that. I pushed the keystroke. I could tell you exactly. We spent $3.3 million of my overtime budget was detailed, so that money was reimbursed back to the back there. One of the problems that they have is in the cities in the state of Florida, that doesn't count towards your pension. In some counties, and Volusia's one, that counts toward their pension.
Right.
So you got guys toward the end of their career, they're like, I could suck it up for 3 or 4 years, as opposed to being based
Right.
on that. Now I'm all the way up here.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of the project we've been working on, but it's hard to wrangle it down because there are all of these variables.
I mean, when
all
I-
these we don't know.
My last 3 years in Philadelphia, I was a homicide lieutenant making $150,000 a year. My base pay was $62,000. None of that stuff counted toward my pension. What counted was you had 18 years at this multiplier and at your base salary, and that's how they figure out your pension. Because you could never pay. I mean, they're in pension straits now. With 7,000 cops, let alone everybody else, you can never financially you could never do that ever. But this is an anomaly that they get that counts toward their pension. So that's why you have a lot of those guys to do that.
So then the taxpayer pays forever.
Taxpayer pays for that 4-year
Right.
boost up. Taxpayer pays forever on that thing. And actually, one of the biggest headaches would probably make my life a whole lot easier if that was wrangled in where the overtime doesn't count towards your pension. Even in Daytona, it was 300 hours. You got 300, and it was almost impossible to get 300 hours of city overtime. You get a ton of outside, but FRS closed that loophole when I first got here, but they didn't close it for the counties. Some counties, and like I said, Volusia is one, but that counts towards your pension. And that sets up the abuse that you're talking about.
Quick question on another subject. The legislature is going to be considering again this year a proposal to allow guns on college campuses. And without getting into the politics of that, I just wonder from a law enforcement perspective, what does how does that change things when you think about patrolling campuses or having to respond to calls on campuses?
I have to tell you that my daughter's a school teacher, and I would never in a million years want her to have a gun. on campus. Part of me, if it's concealed permit holder,
Yeah.
part of me says that wouldn't be a bad thing, because statistically, concealed weapons permit holders are the most law-abiding of law-abiding citizens. I mean, we don't. I gotta tell you, and in my careers, you know, off the top of my head, if I encountered 3 people that had a concealed weapons permit that committed a crime and lost their thing, I'm probably even over-exaggerating. So that part of me says that that's not a bad thing in that regards. We did the police foundation in Daytona State College. We were sending our cops back to school for no cost. I had 60 of them, and those guys and girls were on that campus all the time in plain clothes carrying their firearm because they're police officers.
So we try to keep these to an hour, and we've had you
Okay.
for an hour. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions?
Well, I'd just like to know, so, you know, it was a tough decision for you to make. In fact, you made it, then you backtracked on it, and then you made it again. One, are you glad you made the decision, or are you enjoying this frantic lifestyle the last 3 weeks?
I'm loving every minute of it. I mean,
I figured you'd say that.
I was like a little kid at Christmas, could not wait for 12:01 New Year's Eve, because I was like a man without a country after the 11th of November when they appointed Craig the interim chief. And then I was like, okay, yeah, I had the office, but I really had no power. And yeah, I was going to Deland every day, but I wasn't allowed to make a decision. I was like, come on, please, let's just get this thing moving. Daytona Beach will always, and they made me cry the other night, and I'm sure I would never cry, will always play a huge part in my life, both professionally and personally. This place has been unbelievable. I mean, it really, really has. And I'm just hoping that the good Lord will allow me to have half the success that I had in Daytona Beach in the county, and I'll be happy with it. We're going to try. So one of the things I really don't care about getting reelected. That's not, I tell them all that. I don't care. That's not what my mission is to come in every day to get reelected. My mission is to come in, give 1,001%, work as hard as I can, make the changes that we need to make us a progressive organization, and then in 2020, we'll let the voters will make that decision for me. I don't want anybody holding a campaign sign for me, and I don't want anybody in this organization donating money for me. I don't want it. So.
Yeah, I think the care about getting reelected starts about 28 to 30 months in.
Yeah, the third year we'll start worrying. Right now, it's like, hey, we're gonna have fun, and we're gonna have a lot of fun doing it. I can't wait to get out on my bike in Daytona. That's what I really can't wait for.